Egypt. And so Jacob sends 10 of his sons to Egypt to purchase grain. But Benjamin remains at home. Note that. Jacob refuses to let him go because Benjamin has become precious to him in a way that the other sons have not. And so Benjamin is the last surviving son of Rachel, the wife that Jacob loved deeply near. And so Joseph, in this case, is presumed dead, right? Jacob doesn't know that Joseph is still alive, right? Because last he knew, he fell victim. Amen. He fell victim because he had the coat, and they put the coat back with the stain on it, and he thought he was dead. Right. So, am I in the Word? You are. I'm in the Word. I'm in the Word. I'm in the Word. Kennedy, I'm in the Word. Amen. Stay in the Word tonight. Amen. And so, Joseph, I'm in there. Yeah, I'm in there. Yes, sir. Yeah. Joseph is presumed, if this was a different church, I would say something else. Amen. Joseph is presumed dead. And Benjamin has become, you got it, has become the living connection to the woman that Jacob lost. That's right there, pray. When the brothers arrive in Egypt, they unknowingly stand before who? Joseph. Right. And so the brother they betrayed and sold them into slavery and erased their lives is now the governor of Egypt. And so the one they stripped of his coat, right, is now clothed with authority. The one they cast into the pit, it is now in position to decide whether or not they live or die. Right. And so Joseph immediately recognizes his brothers, but they do not recognize him. And so, rather than revealing himself, Joseph begins to test them. Yeah. The years have passed. I believe at least a decade or 2 decades has passed. But Joseph needs to know whether or not their hearts have changed. Amen. Missionary Hines, we're glad to see you tonight. We're just doing a roll call. Amen. Let me know, amen. It's 809. Amen. And you and your entire family just got here. Amen. But we bless the Lord, amen. We're just doing a roll call, amen, for the record. Amen. 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 And so we bless the Lord for you. Amen. And so, rather than revealing himself, Joseph begins to test them. The years have passed. And so, and he wants to know, are these the same men who would sell their own brothers for 20 pieces of silver? Are these the same men who could break their father's heart and live with a lie? Have they learned anything from the guilt they had carried all these years? And so Joseph, he accuses them of being spies, and tells them in Genesis 42:9, it says, and Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them, and said unto them, ye are spies, to see the nakedness of the land ye are come. And Joseph knows that they are not spies, but the accusation creates a circumstance that themselves powerless. The men who once ignored Joseph's cry from the pit experiences uncertainty and fear themselves. And so sometimes God has a way of allowing us to experience situations that force us to see life from a different perspective. This is why we ought not be too fast to judge folks, amen. Because sometimes, amen, God will turn around and have you to experience the thing that you turn your nose up at. And so after 3 days, Joseph changes the terms. And so he releases most of the brothers, but get this, he keeps behind Simeon. Amen. That's going to become a point of the text. And so when you read Genesis 42 and 24, it tells us that Simeon was bound before their eyes. And so Simeon becomes the guarantee that they will return. And so Simeon becomes the hostage and the pledge and the living reminder that their business in Egypt is not finished. And so Joseph tells them that in order to get this grain the next time, they must return with their youngest brother Benjamin. Until Benjamin comes, Simeon is going to remain in prison. And so now the story begins to get a little more complicated. And so I need you to buckle your seatbelts. Amen. And so the brothers return home and they tell Jacob everything that has happened. They explain that the governor of Egypt has demanded to see Benjamin before he would allow them to purchase grain again. And so they tell Jacob that Simeon is still being held in Egypt. Yet Jacob's response reveals the depth of his fear. So instead of focusing on the famine, he focuses on Benjamin. Instead of focusing on Simeon being in prison, he focuses on Benjamin. And so instead of trusting God, he clings to Benjamin. Wow. And so this is where the text begins to reveal something deeper, because Benjamin is no longer simply Jacob's son. Right. Benjamin has become the object of Jacob's attachment. Right, right. And so Benjamin is the youngest son of Jacob and Rachel. If you recall that he is the youngest son of Benjamin and Rachel. And so with that being said, it reveals the depth of his fear. And so Benjamin is no longer simply Jacob's son. And so Benjamin is the son of Jacob and Rachel. But you got to understand that Rachel died while giving birth